a lot of students fall behind because they're not actually doing the work over the summer.
Yeah, most students, this is actually the time where most students have the time. They're off all summer. They don't have the same requirements yet. They fall behind because they don't use that time wisely.
Yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. Well, Nicola, thanks so much for being here. We're so excited to have you back. Today, we're going to be covering what it is that you need to do over the summer as a grade 11 student to be ready for grade 12. So it's full of tactical advice, the things that really do matter and what you should be doing to be successful heading into grade 12 and making it count. It being overwhelming and still having a good time. So, first things first, Nicola, why does grade 11 summer matter so much for admissions?
Well, I mean, it is the summer prior to you having pretty much every major application that you're going to be filling out over the next couple of months. So that time between September until I would say kind of beginning of February, maybe February 1st, is such a hectic, busy time where you are going to be writing, interviewing, prepping, at the same time, keeping your grades up and keeping your leadership up. So the summer before, you can actually use that time to get ahead, to do some of that writing, to do some of that prepping, that practicing. Yet, so many times I see a lot of students that they just waste that time. They don't, and I know there's a lot going on in the summer, but literally it could take, maybe 30 minutes to an hour per week. And you could successfully, over that 8 weeks that you have over the summer, you could successfully catch up and be ready for your grade 12 year.
Yeah. And that that makes a lot of sense. I think that's well put. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. It just has to be consistent, right? And you doing a little bit of work. I think just so students understand as well, sometimes they just don't will cover what they need to do, but sometimes they don't understand what they're maybe losing or what the real impact of them not being prepared for, what is this crunch season really of that first, second semester and a half of grade 12 where things really matter. What are the main opportunities that disappear if students wait until grade 12?
Well, I mean, right at the beginning of grade 12, there's a lot to do. Like, first of all, there's a couple of major scholarships that come up. There is the Loran, the TD, and those are due like October. Loran is in October, middle of October usually is the deadline, and then there's TD, which is November, and then right after that, there's just so many other things that fall, with deadlines, such as applying to universities, and then you have your supplementals that come right after that. So like every single week basically of your grade 12 year, there is something due, like, and I'm not
Right.
kidding. Like, I mean, I say
Yeah.
that to students and they kind of look at me and go, oh, okay, I can handle that, I can do that. Well, when grade 12 comes, I see the fear set in. Like, I literally see students, where they do have those, that anxiety and that stress come about, and yeah, it could be prevented. So I would say, like,
And you're particularly talking about scholarships as well. Like for the student that wants to apply to scholarships and
yeah,
universities,
yes,
you almost have everything going on at the same time, along with, your life and like schoolwork as well. Gotcha.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think even like universities, I mean, UBC, as we know, their personal profile, the prompts never change, right? So I would say, that the time to like take care of that would be in the summer of grade 11. Like I would be doing, or, going into grade 12, I would be working on that, at least prepping it and getting it half prepared to, like, and having, looking it over, reviewing it, so that you can, finalize it once it is due in December. Because grade 12, that, those first few months of grade 12, there's so much going on just in school. You're going to be, working very, very hard with your academics because you're going to want to keep those up. You probably have a lot of grad planning going on. It's your last year. There's a lot of great things happening that you want to enjoy. And, if, you have that plus, all of these different applications that are due, one after the other every single
Yeah.
week. a lot to manage. It's a lot to manage.
Totally. And I guess, I'll share this as well for the folks at home who are listening. Is students often at this point, they're asking, how do I know what question they should be practicing? How do I know what question they should be looking at? Actually, on the Admission Prep website, admissionprep.com, little plug. If you go to our blog, we do have admissions guide to the top universities in the country. So, we've got everything from UBC, U of T, Waterloo, McMaster, Queens, Western. And the questions are somewhat interchangeable, but we actually have the questions that are on some of the applications there for you to practice and for different programs as well. So you can go take a look there and find some practice questions for you to do. But back to you now, Nicola. Is there's the prep there so you can get ahead of it, so you at least know how to write well, you practice it, you built the muscle. I want to now ask you.
Mhm.
Um, I get question we ask is, do campus tours matter? Should you do them? Should you spend the money? What is your opinion on this? As somebody who's worked with a lot of families, what do you think?
You should absolutely go visit the campus. I
Mhm.
mean, I see so many students, that apply to schools out of province. They've never had the opportunity to actually go and visit that before they apply.
Mhm.
And I have seen students that apply, get in, they go visit the campus, and then they realize, I don't know, I don't know if I see myself here. So I would
Right.
say, you're going to be wasting money if you actually apply to that school, and then you realize that you don't really like that. There'd never be a chance
Yes.
of going to that school. So I'd say yes, go to the campuses. Not that that's the only priority, obviously, when you're choosing schools, but it's a big part of you making that decision, because you are going to be going there, of course, for the next 4 years of your life. So you should see the campus. You should talk to people, even if you don't do like a tour that's given by them. You can still go and
Right.
you can tour yourself. um, go and try to talk to whoever you can. But definitely, if you can get a hold of faculty or talk to other students, yes, like absolutely, do all of it, do all of it. Hmm.
Yeah. No, okay. So you're pretty pro campus tours, which
Hmm.
is good to hear. I think we agree. As long as it's something that isn't going to break the bank, depending on how
Yeah.
far away it is.
Yes.
More often than not, the day you might take to do so, I mean, you got to spend 4 years there probably, unless you do an exchange program.
Hmm.
So you should make sure you like it. I think that's a great like bare minimum for students and families to be aiming for.
Yeah. Most
And
most schools too, sorry, just most schools do offer like virtual tours. I know it's not exactly the same thing, but if you can't get there, you can get sort of like an understanding of what that campus has to offer. School, like, this is all part of it. School websites themselves also tell you a lot.
yeah, totally.
Just like the things that they offer there in terms of clubs, in terms of like the student services that they offer. Yeah, you want to, I mean, yeah, if you're not writing your essays, which I hope you are, but you're not writing your essays, you should definitely be researching. Like, that's
Yeah.
another big part of your, pre grade 12 year.
Totally. And now, we talked about essays. What are the key things, like key actions a student in grade 11 or grade 10, like ideally grade 11, should be taking? What are the key actions they should be taking over the summer? There's writing. What else should they be doing? What about the profile? What about other things?
Yeah, I mean, I think, by grade 11, by like summer of grade 11, where you are, you're heading into grade 12 the following year, I would hope, that you have some sort of experience. You've got things to talk about in those essays. If you don't, you better start there. You better think about something that you can do over the summer to gain some kind of meaningful experience. Whether that's, even if that's getting a job, but
Right.
hopefully, some kind of volunteer, something that you can do. I would say, if if you haven't done a lot of stuff in school, there are things like going to a summer camp and working with younger children, like being a camp counselor, but anything that you can do to gain some experience to put on your personal profile or to be able to talk about in some of these supplementals, would be the first thing. And then I would say, yeah, like, if you've got that already and now you're looking to see, like, how do I use those experiences? That's where you should be now looking at some of the prompts, some of the things that are asked by those specific schools on their supplementals,
Mhm.
and thinking about your experiences and how can you fit those, how can you write about those, so that you do shine, that you stand out on your applications.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, kind of like what is it called? Dotting your I's and crossing your T's, right? Like getting those things in order. Okay, that's really good. And you know, I'm wondering what other tips do you have for students that aren't sure about, maybe they haven't got the profile they wanted, maybe the realization is hitting them that, oh gosh, I kind of have to get involved and I kind of need to dig a little bit deeper into what I'm passionate about and to be able to show it in a committee. How do you tackle that? And what recommendations do you have for that student or parent? Because there's somebody listening and they're thinking, I don't have a thing to like dot my I's and T's on. I don't even have a T or I yet. So what should they be doing?
Yeah, I think I like it's a tough one. It is. I'll be quite honest with you. If you haven't done, some leadership or you haven't had that sort of passion project, and you know that that's going to be very, very important for the applications, that you're applying to, then yeah, I mean, I would say you do have time. You're not gonna, you're not gonna have sort of the commitment level there because if you're starting it just before the summer of grade 12, or you're starting it, yeah, in the summer of before grade 12, then that commitment isn't necessarily there. However, I think you've got to really look at, like, yeah, things that you can do in your community because obviously school is now out. So I would say, look at local places that you can volunteer at, like food banks, maybe the hospital, maybe maybe somebody, a friend, family that needs help with their business, something like that. Anything that you can get experience with, where you can really give some value. You can learn a lot. You can definitely take that time to grow, develop some skills that you can actually say, hey, yeah, like I did this, and because of that, I was able to build my leadership. I was able
Mhm.
to work on my communication skills, because essentially those are what universities are definitely looking for.
Gotcha. And what are your tips on, like, what are your best tips to document your progress? So by the time applications roll around, it's like ready to go. Like, what are your best tactical tips for that?
Well, we always talk about kind of the STAR structure, which is sort of, it stands for situation, task, action, result. And basically what that is just like, knowing sort of why you're doing something, and like, and what that is. So, what the organization is and what their overall goal is. And, why did you decide to do that volunteer role versus
Hmm.
that leadership role? And then really understanding, having a goal for yourself and having a goal within your role, like, so keeping track of that and logging that and knowing what that is. And then
Right.
actions are the biggest part, and they're the biggest part of like the essays that you're going to write. So even when you think something's like really, well, that's not really that important, so I hung posters up, or so I helped one of the kids that were not behaving very well, like those are all big things that you should be writing down, so that you can talk about those. You can talk about your conflicts that you've had, or any kind of obstacles you had to get over. Those are all great things, and definitely and results aren't always what we sort of maybe wanted them to be. Like, results can be something as small as getting five kids or five other students to join your club, or raising $100 for a certain charity. Maybe your goal was to raise 500, you only got to 100. But I think it's really important to acknowledge what you were able to do, and keep track of the things that you were able to do. And then I think reflect on, again, those skills. Like, were you able to maybe work on just your public speaking or communication, or did you get a chance to lead a team? Those are all really, really, really important things to like log and
Yeah.
document. Yeah.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
I think that's actually really good advice. Pre-write using the star structure,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
things you need to do, and then you kind of have it there, and you've done the reflection. That's actually really good advice. Someone write that down.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, that's fantastic. Um, as well, for the student, you said it here, 30 minutes to an hour a week.
Yes.
Can you give us like, it's Tuesday today. Who knows what day it'll be when somebody's listening to this? If the
Yes.
weekend is upcoming and it's summer, what's like, how can a student get more prepared over just one weekend? What are will give us a checklist? What are some, 1 to 3 steps they can take that just over a weekend they can be more prepared?
Yeah, what I would do is I would first start off with, I think we did this, we talked about this before in a different podcast, but like think about the schools that you're wanting to go to, and research them. Research what are they looking for? Like, what are they, is there a supplemental? What do I have to do for that supplemental? Is there a written portion? Is there like an interview that I have to do? What do I have to research that and understand it? Because that's key. Like a lot of students just don't even have a clue until they've actually applied to schools, and then they're kind of bombarded with these different
Yes.
applications they have to finish, and they're not prepared. So research that, and understand it, and then and then practice. Like if you can practice, then do that. You may not, because every year sometimes things do change. So you might not have the exact prompts or the exact questions that they're going to ask. But I'm going to tell you that most universities, the questions that are asked are to do with like leadership. They are to do with like the skills that you've developed. They're to do with like obstacles that you've overcome. So think about those key things. Think about your leadership. Think about the skills you've developed. Think about obstacles that you've overcome. Think about the things that you're proud of. Things that you are passionate about, because those, and write them out, because those are the things that you're going to have to tell University of
Yeah.
Toronto or UBC, right? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
last question, because I think we've got a lot of the steps that a student is going to need. How early should families mark university deadlines and scholarship deadlines on their calendar? How early should they start having those marked on there so they know?
Marked, like do you mean like finished, or like, or just like
Like how early should they know? This is something coming up in November and October and September, and how early, it's June right now. How early should somebody have those written down and planned and be aware of it? What should that be?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're a grade 11 student, you should know about everything. Like probably yesterday is when you should sort of have that calendar, I'll be honest with you. But you've got to remember that the grade 12 year, the grade 12 year, up until between September to about February, even past that, there is an application due every single week, maybe two a week, depending on how many schools you're applying to. But when it comes to scholarships, they are throughout your grade 12 year. So if you do not have a great grasp on that before you get into September, you're going to be behind. So I would say like, yeah, I'd say like now, summer is a time that you can actually look for those scholarships. You can plan them out as to what I do with students is we plan out when those are due, but that's a deadline for that application. We plan out also the time where that first draft should be done. When you want to actually have that finished, so that everything else on that application, you have time to kind of like just, yeah, again, like dot your i's, cross your t's, right? So there's an absolute deadline, and there's an actually deadline to have everything finished so that you're not missing anything.
Yeah. No, totally. That makes a lot of sense. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. You have to plan your deadlines and have a plan for your deadlines. So
Yes, yes,
you need to have all those planned out. And
yes.
I think this is a quick one, but full of info, I think, for families who are in that point and they're realizing, oh my gosh, my applications are opening in like 2 to 3 months. I think it's what's needed at this time of year. So Nicola, thanks so much for joining us. Once again, folks, we're Admission Prep. We help students get into their top universities. Please like and share the podcast if you got some value. If you're interested in our support and working with advisors like Nicola to guide you through the entire process, you can check out our website at admissionprep.com and submit an application. But this has always been a pleasure, Nicola, and hopefully we can get a lot of prepared students over the summer.
Awesome. All right. See you soon. Bye.